You know that deeply unsettling feeling of vertigo?
Oh, yeah. The absolute worst.
Right. Like that split second when something you always trusted to be absolutely solid, like the literal ground beneath your feet, it just suddenly gives way.
You completely lose your balance.
Exactly. You lose your orientation, and for a moment, the whole world is just, it's just chaos.
It's a complete disruption of your baseline reality. I mean, we go through our days operating on this immense amount of assumed stability.
You really do.
And you just don't realize how much you rely on that foundation until it, violently shifts.
And welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a huge stack of daily news sources from June 25th, 2026. And honestly, the best way to describe the landscape today is exactly that. It's a day defined by tectonic shifts.
Yeah, massive ones.
We're talking about world-altering disruptions for you to navigate. Some of these are literal shockwaves happening right in the Earth's crust, and others are, well, figurative shockwaves that are completely restructuring our economy, technology, and global society.
There is an enormous amount of heavy information to process today. And I mean, if you look at these events in isolation, from, say, global inflation data to this bizarre surge in a fast food stock we'll talk about later.
All right, Wendy's thing, yeah.
Right. They might seem totally disconnected, but they really aren't. They're interconnected symptoms of a world in a very rapid, very messy transition.
So our mission today is to cut through all that noise.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to sift through this stack of sources and pull out those crucial aha moments for you. That way you can actually understand the underlying mechanics of what's happening around us.
And we really have to start with the most urgent, devastating news on the board.
Yeah. The literal shockwave. Wednesday evening, Venezuela was struck by a 7.2 magnitude earthquake. And then, just 39 seconds later, a 7.5 magnitude earthquake hit.
39 seconds.
It's just unimaginable.
The scale of that structural stress it's just difficult to comprehend. We're looking at dozens of collapsed buildings in the capital, Caracas, and the coastal city of La Guaira. I mean, the official numbers right now sit at 188 dead and over 1,520 injured. Wow.
But the U.S. Geological Survey, the USGS, they've issued a really grim warning. They estimate there's a 44% chance that fatalities could ultimately exceed 10,000.
10,000. To help you wrap your mind around the sheer terror of that, just think about those 39 seconds. It's like a boxer taking a devastating right hook to the jaw, right?
Right.
And before the brain can even register that first hit, before your knees even hit the mat, you are struck with a massive lights-out uppercut. The infrastructure there didn't even have a minute to settle from the 7.2 before the 7.5 tore through whatever was left standing.
And that lateral force is exactly what brings buildings down. Structures that might have, barely survived the initial wave were instantly subjected to a second, far more powerful resonance.
And the response has to be immediate.
The immediate priority globally is rescue. The U.S. is deploying specialized search and rescue teams from Fairfax and Los Angeles counties.
Yeah.
And these are elite internationally deployed units designed specifically for catastrophic urban collapse. And it's interesting, the U.S. response is actually being framed as a major geopolitical priority, which, given the recent history there, is a pretty big deal.
Definitely.
Secretary of State Rubio promised the response will be big, fast, and effective. And President Trump explicitly instructed government agencies to help, actually going as far as to refer to Venezuela as America's new and great friends.
Which really highlights how a massive physical rupture can, instantly rewrite geopolitical fault lines. But, while natural disasters create these immediate, terrifying, visible shockwaves, man-made conflicts create economic shockwaves that can ripple across the globe invisibly for months.
And those alter the reality of everyday life just as profoundly.
Exactly.
That invisible shifting brings us straight into the domestic, political, and economic landscape.
Yeah.
Because we have some major budget friction.
Right.
According to our sources, President Trump torpedoed a GOP budget deal to apply pressure on lawmakers over a stalled Senate elections overhaul bill. And separately, the White House has asked Congress for nearly $88 billion in supplemental funding, mostly to cover the ongoing U.S. military operations against Iran.
Look, before we dig into the numbers here, we should probably set our parameters on how we're approaching the political maneuvering.
Yeah, that is a very fair point. And we want to be absolutely clear with you. We are neutrally reporting on these budget maneuvers, the election bill, and the Iran war funding strictly as facts presented in the source material.
Right.
We are absolutely not endorsing any political viewpoints, left or right. We aren't playing pundit. What we really care about today is the downstream math.
Yeah.
We want to know how this specific $88 billion request for Iran operations directly maps onto the inflation numbers and the economic reality you're currently living in.
Because that economic reality is striking right now. The Fed's preferred inflation gauge, the May PCE, just hit 4.1% annually. Yeah, that is the highest we've seen since April 2023. Core PCE, which strips out volatile food and energy prices, that's running at 3.4%.
Okay, let's unpack this, because 4.1% inflation is undeniably frustrating for literally anyone buying groceries right now.
Oh, absolutely.
But then the sources point out this weird silver lining. Fertilizer prices for American farmers are actually easing up because the Strait of Hormuz is reopening, with a U.S.-Iran peace deal in sight. So I'm trying to connect those dots. How does a diplomatic peace deal in the Middle East end up lowering the cost of food on my dinner plate via fertilizer?
It's all about the supply chain mechanics of commercial agriculture. I mean, nitrogen-based fertilizers don't just appear out of nowhere.
Right.
They require massive amounts of natural gas to synthesize. So when the conflict with Iran escalated and threatened the Strait of Hormuz, which is this crucial global choke point for energy shipments, energy prices globally just spiked.
So natural gas got really expensive, which makes fertilizer expensive, which makes corn and wheat expensive.
Precisely. That 4.1% PCE inflation we're seeing in May, a huge chunk of that is basically just the statistical echo of that exact energy spike working its way through the supply chain.
Wow.
But with the strait reopening and a peace deal in view, those energy input costs drop. The relief hits the fertilizer plants first, then the farmers, and eventually it trickles down to the grocery store shelves for you.
I hear that, but I'm looking at the rest of this economic data and I'm honestly just a bit baffled.
How so?
Because alongside that high 4.1% inflation, Q1 GDP was revised up to 2.1%. Consumer spending rose a robust 0.7%, and weekly jobless claims actually dropped to 215,000. I mean, if prices are so high, how is consumer spending climbing? Are people just maxing out credit cards, or what is happening here?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it shows the stubborn momentum of the U.S. consumer. Yes, there's likely some credit utilization happening, sure, but fundamentally, the labor market is holding firm.
Right.
Only 215,000 jobless claims means people still have income. And when people have income, they continue to spend, even if they're incredibly irritated by the prices.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That resilience actually gives the Federal Reserve the cover they need to hold interest rates steady for now, though the markets are pricing in a potential rate hike in September just to cool things off.
So the broad traditional labor market looks fine on paper. But beneath that surface-level resilience, there's this silent earthquake happening in one very specific sector.
Yes.
And that is the collision between the human workforce and artificial intelligence.
We finally have the hard corporate data to prove what the white-collar world has been whispering about for the last 2 years. Oracle just disclosed that they eliminated approximately 21,000 jobs over the last 12 months.
Wait, 21,000 jobs?
Yeah. And the crucial detail here, management explicitly cited AI automation as a factor in those reductions.
That is just wild. Because that isn't a forecast. That's not some futurist prediction about the year 2030. That is a retroactive casualty count.
Exactly. It already happened.
What kinds of jobs are we actually talking about here? I mean, it's not like humanoid robots are sitting in cubicles typing on keyboards.
No, it's invisible displacement. We're talking about mid-level data processing, routine coding, logistics management, HR operations. Software agents are now totally capable of executing complex API calls and database management that, used to require a whole team of junior analysts.
So the software just does it in seconds.
Right. AI is displacing workers at scale today. And because the financial incentive to automate is so massive, the corporate arms race to build these AI systems has become incredibly cutthroat. Just look at the espionage happening between the major labs.
Oh, the sources outline this massive fight. Anthropic just accused Alibaba's Quinn lab of executing the largest known distillation campaign to date.
It's unprecedented.
Anthropic reported this directly to Senators Warren and Scott, and they're claiming operators linked to Alibaba used roughly 25,000 fake accounts to run 28.8 million exchanges with Anthropic's Claude AI just between April and June.
And Anthropic is so alarmed by this that they want Congress to treat AI distillation as a literal national security threat.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the term distillation sounds like, a high school chemistry project.
It does.
But conceptually, it's essentially a massive, highly coordinated heist. Think of it like this. Imagine Anthropic is a world-renowned 3-Michelin star restaurant. They spent billions perfecting their master chef's recipes.
Right.
Alibaba's lab, instead of inventing their own recipes, they essentially send 25,000 people wearing fake mustaches into the restaurant. They sit down, they order every single dish on the menu 28.8 million times and take detailed notes on exactly how it tastes.
All, just so they can sneak back to their own kitchen and reverse engineer the master chef's exact recipe book?
Yes.
And to build on that analogy, imagine those 25,000 fake mustache guys are also drinking 10,000 gallons of water and using up half your city's power grid while they sit at the table.
Oh, wow.
That is the computational cost of distillation. Training a frontier AI model from scratch costs billions of dollars in specialized hardware and time. Distillation is a shortcut.
It's cheating the system.
You use the incredibly smart, expensive model to train your cheaper, smaller model by feeding it millions of interactions. You're actively siphoning off the synthetic intelligence.
And the fallout for Alibaba seems pretty severe. Their stock hit a 16-month low in Hong Kong. But they are fighting back on another front. Alibaba is currently suing the Pentagon in federal court because the U.S. arbitrarily added them to the 1260H list of alleged Chinese military companies.
Yeah, the 1260H list is essentially a Department of Defense registry. Alibaba's lawsuit claims the Pentagon provided no explanation or due process for adding them.
And that's a huge deal for them.
Huge. The reason Alibaba is fighting this so hard is because being on that list creates a massive chilling effect. It effectively cuts them off from key U.S. commercial ecosystems, and it makes any Western firm just terrified to partner with them or invest in their infrastructure.
But while software companies are fighting these shadowy extraction wars and legal battles, the physical hardware companies that are actually building the AI infrastructure, they are seeing astronomical gains.
Unbelievable number.
Micron stock just surged 15% following a blowout third quarter. And SK Hynix, out of South Korea, announced a massive $29 billion U.S. listing plan purely to expand their AI chip capacity.
Tens of billions of dollars are being poured into concrete, steel, silicon, and power grids to facilitate this AI boom. It's not just code floating around in the cloud.
Well,
It requires massive physical infrastructure that results in immediate real-world consequences for you. I mean, evidenced by Oracle replacing 21,000 human livelihoods with the exact computing power Micron and SK Hynix are manufacturing.
it really paints a picture of our technology sector racing toward this frictionless, hyper-efficient digital future. But when you look away from the screens and look at the physical world we actually inhabit, our climate, our health, our social structures, it feels like a completely different, much darker story.
The physical world is showing severe signs of boiling over. The sources from today provide a grim snapshot of global systems under extreme stress, like operating at the absolute limits of their capacity.
Let's run through the list because the scale is intense. Europe is currently trapped under a shattering heat dome. France is pushing near 40 degrees Celsius, which is 104 Fahrenheit.
Miserable.
The UK just broke its all-time June high, and Spain is posting back-to-back monthly temperature records. And then, domestically, the forecast in Dallas-Fort Worth is locked at an unrelenting 95 degrees Fahrenheit with practically zero chance of rain, just holding steady with no meaningful relief in sight.
And then you transition from climate stress to public health crises. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, an Ebola outbreak in the remote Ituri province has already killed 58 people. And that's just in one specific area, the Shuni 1 neighborhood of Mongwalu.
And the societal pressure cooker is whistling too. In South Africa, severe xenophobic violence is escalating. A leading group there has actually given undocumented migrants an ultimatum to leave the country by June 30th, and foreign-owned businesses are being actively targeted.
Even in the realm of domestic legal infrastructure, we are seeing profound fragmentation. Today marks exactly 4 years since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade on June 24, 2022.
And look, we have to make this abundantly clear to you listening. When looking at that Roe anniversary, we are viewing it purely through the lens of legal and societal infrastructure. Regardless of where anyone stands on the issue morally or politically, the reality on the ground is just a rapidly shifting, highly fragmented patchwork of state laws.
Right. We aren't endorsing any stance on abortion here.
Exactly. But we have to acknowledge that this patchwork creates immense navigational friction for the public and the medical system.
This raises an important question about systemic strain.
I do want to push back a little here, though, because we read these news roundups and it feels apocalyptic. But are these systems, climate, health, social stability, are they actually breaking down more than they used to? Or do we just have, like, better satellite tools, better global communication networks to measure and report on the extremes now? Are we just hyper-aware?
It's a classic debate in sociology, really, but the data suggests it's actually both. Yes, our measurement tools are better than ever, we see everything. But the extremes themselves are demonstrably escalating. And what is crucial to understand is how these fragilities are deeply intertwined.
How so? Like, how do they connect?
Well, take the heat dome in Europe or persistent drought conditions. Extreme climate stress ruins agriculture and displaces populations.
Right, people have to move.
Right. Those displaced populations migrate, which instantly strains local resources in their new destinations. That sudden resource strain often triggers xenophobic violence and scapegoating, exactly like we're seeing in South Africa.
Wow, so it's a chain reaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At the same time, when populations are displaced into temporary or crowded conditions with limited healthcare infrastructure, like the remote mining regions of the DRC, infectious diseases like Ebola spread much faster. A crack in one pillar immediately applies unbearable weight to all the others.
And when the macro environment feels this heavy and just this out of control, human psychology tends to react in really unpredictable ways. People just look for ways to reclaim a sense of agency, which explains the absolute absurdity we saw in the financial markets this afternoon.
You're talking about Wendy's.
Yes, the fast food chain. Retail traders inexplicably squeezed Wendy's stock up 15% today. The sources explicitly noted it brought the 2021 meme stock energy right back to the markets.
The juxtaposition there is almost poetic. I mean, you have institutional investors deeply analyzing the 4.1% PCE inflation data, and they're deploying billions into Micron's AI infrastructure.
Very serious stuff.
And simultaneously, a completely decentralized mob of retail traders coordinates on the internet to artificially pump the stock of a company famous for square hamburgers.
So what does this all mean? I just marvel at the duality of it. We spend the morning building world-altering artificial intelligence that can steal Michelin star data 28 million times in a month, and we spend the afternoon making memes and pumping up fast food stocks just for the thrill of it.
It's a coping mechanism. I really think it's a way to feel a sense of control and collective action in a financial system that otherwise feels entirely dominated by algorithms, massive corporate interests, and geopolitical forces you can't control.
That makes a lot of sense.
If you can't fix the inflation or the AI job losses, you can at least band together online and force a hedge fund to lose money on Wendy's.
And speaking of collective action as a grounding force, we also have sports, which acts as this massive, tangible, global unifier. The U.S. men's national team, the U.S. M&T, they're already Group D winners with a 6-1 goal differential.
They looked great.
They play Turkey tonight at SoFi Stadium, although Kristen Pulisic is doubtful with a calf injury.
The broader tournament picture is really taking shape, too. South Korea was eliminated after a 0-0 draw with South Africa. Co-host Mexico topped Group A. Germany won Group E with a pretty dominant display, and England topped Group L.
But, you know, the story that really stood out in the sports section wasn't about the elite athletes. It was an NPR piece about Philadelphia. It highlighted the city's deep Ukrainian soccer roots, showing how immigrant clubs have built community through the sport for decades in a city that is now hosting World Cup matches.
That story perfectly closes the loop on everything we've discussed today. I mean, think about the xenophobic violence in South Africa or the geopolitical displacement caused by the conflicts we touched on.
Yeah.
Sports serve as a vital grounding force for immigrant communities, particularly those displaced by global conflicts and disasters. Soccer is a universal language. It's a mechanism to reconstruct a sense of home, identity, and shared humanity when the physical or economic ground beneath them has shifted.
It gives them back that solid footing when everything else induces vertigo.
Precisely.
Okay, let's take a breath and recap the incredible scope of this deep dive. We started with the terrifying literal shockwaves of the Venezuelan earthquakes, where 39 seconds leveled infrastructure. Horrific. We unpacked how a peace deal in the Strait of Hormuz could eventually lower the cost of your groceries by dropping natural gas and fertilizer prices, even as inflation hits 4.1%. We looked at the invisible earthquake of the AI arms race, with Oracle cutting 21,000 human jobs while Alibaba and Anthropic fight over stolen synthetic data.
The distillation wars.
Exactly. Then we saw a physical world boiling over from heat domes to Ebola. And finally, we saw how humanity copes with that lack of control, whether it's through the absurd financial rebellion of meme stocks or the deep, unifying power of a soccer match in Philadelphia.
It is a portrait of a world moving at two very different speeds. And I want to leave you with one final thought to consider, something we haven't explicitly asked yet.
Okay.
We talked about the tens of billions of dollars being poured into making our artificial digital systems smarter, faster, and more resilient. The AI arms race is practically frictionless. Yet today's news proves that our physical and social systems, from the electrical grids under heat domes to community healthcare to the literal tectonic plates, are incredibly fragile.
It's a really jarring contrast.
It is. Are we actively prioritizing the survival and advancement of our digital avatars and algorithms over the survival of our physical reality? When the ground actually stops shaking, which of those two worlds is going to demand more of your attention tomorrow?
Wow. That is the vertigo right there, the realization of what actually holds us up. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, keep looking for the underlying mechanics, and we'll see you next time.